The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello everyone, this is Dennis Caye with Belize Real Estate coming to you live today on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. It is December 28th, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and we're going to give everybody just a few more minutes to get on because I see we still got about 1 minute to go before we officially start the broadcast. And I know that sometimes people don't realize that it might be that their phone or tablet has to download an application, so we're going to give everybody just a few minutes to log on and get settled in. So again, we appreciate you all attending. It looks like we're going to be a full house today. We have a record number of attendees and registrants today, and this is very good because we're going to have a lot of fun, and I promise that this will be well worth your time. And I'm going to make this as educational and fun and productive as possible over the next hour. So while everybody gets settled in, if you would, just take a piece of paper and a pen to take some notes. I have well over 120 slides that I'm going to be going through quite quickly. Some information I'm going to drill down on, some of the numbers, investment numbers, some of the details, and other things I'm going to skip over rapidly and just touch on briefly. So if I do skip over something that you want to know more about, just go ahead and jot that down as a question. You can ask it at the end of the webinar, or you can send it to me by email, and I'll make sure I'll respond either later today or first thing tomorrow morning. So first of all, while everybody's getting set up, I like to launch a poll, and this just helps me to understand who's attending today and how I can better tailor my information to my attendees. So it's just a very simple poll regarding one of the three. So if you're already a client of mine and you already own property on the island and you're attending this webinar today to get the latest and greatest updates as far as what's going on, property values, what's happening in maybe your neck of the woods, please click the first button. If you are a regular receiver of my newsletter and you regularly receive updates from me via email, click that. Or if you're a newbie and you just saw some of my social media posts, such as on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, so forth, go ahead and click that third button. And like I said, what I do this for is so that the next time I run a live event, I tailor the information more specifically to who my attendees are. So if you go ahead, just vote. I'll give it another 15 seconds or so. Everybody get settled in. I'll actually show you the poll as far as who's on today, so you get an idea of who your neighbors are, who your fellow attendees are, and then we'll go ahead and we'll launch the webinar officially. So I'm going to close it out now, and we're going to share the results. I always think this is kind of fun. So 14% of you are already property owners. That's nice. Nice to have you back, getting the latest and greatest updates. 57% of you receive my regular Belize newsletters, and 29% are a regular receiver of my social media posts and updates and whatnot. So very good. All right. So that's who's on. Thank you very, very much. Let's pull that off. All right, very good. Well, in today's webinar, I want to cover these 5 things with you. Number 1 is that Belize could play a role in your future retirement, whether that's 15 years out or 5 years out or whatever, and it could play a role in a personal way. In other words, looking at Belize from a destination that you could personally retire to, either part-time or full-time, or it could play a role in your financial future as a retiree. We're going to talk about different ways you can do that. We're going to highlight what it takes to invest in Belize property using your IRA or your individual retirement account. Now, if you don't have one, still pay close attention to this part of the webinar because the principles that I'm going to highlight and the properties that we'll be discussing are equally applicable to you purchasing using your personal funds. So pay close attention to some of these details. We're going to talk about the 8 key market drivers that are driving the market forward on the island of Ambergris Caye. And finally, we're going to take a look at in-depth study regarding beachfront properties. That's the most common request that I get. Beachfront land, condos, homes, what are the prices of some of these? Where's the direction of the island going? And I'm going to give you several investment options, including improved properties at a very exciting new project that just launched here recently. And then finally going to go ahead with some Q&A. So one thing I forgot to do is to make sure that the audio is working properly. So if you can hear me okay, just please type yes in the question box or in the chat box. If there's any echo or anything, good. Very good, Kim. All right, appreciate that. All right, excellent. Well, let's move forward then. Steph and I left the United States. Just to give you a quick little short story on us, we left the U.S. back in 2003, both born and raised in Bay City, Michigan. And we moved to Belize, first living on the mainland for 2.5 to 3 years. And we traveled that extensively up and down from Corozal to Placencia, Punta Gorda, Cayo in the west, Belize City, spent a lot of time in all those key areas. And then after about 2.5 or 3 years, we moved out to the island of Ambergris Caye, and here is where we found that we just took to it like a fish to water, so to speak. It really fulfilled all of our dreams. Had a fantastic life there, and I got to experience some pretty neat things. For example, I was on a episode of House Hunters International. If you're a fan of the show, you may remember me touring Sienna from Calgary, Canada, around and helping her to find her property. So that was a pretty interesting show. That got me my 17 minutes of fame, so to speak. And then I was also able to work with HGTV to produce 2 episodes of their newly launched show called Live Here, Buy This, where we highlighted properties on the island of Ambergris Caye and also several properties on the mainland, including Belmopan and the jungles of Cayo. And that was a really cool experience as well. And finally, through some of my contacts on the island, I was able to meet Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. Many of you who are in the real estate business know Mr. Kiyosaki. He is a fantastic real estate investor himself, author of the Rich Dad series books, and I've learned a lot from him. And one of the things that I learned after spending a week with him on the Summit at Sea Investor Cruise was something he talks about money, and it's in this slide. He says, money is not the goal. Money has no value. The value comes from the dreams money helps achieve. So it's sort of the same thing with real estate. Real estate by itself really doesn't have any value. It's what the real estate allows you to enjoy that has a return. Enjoy maybe a return of money, which you can use for other things, or maybe just a return of enjoyment and lifestyle and making memories with your family. So we're going to take a look at how Mr. Kiyosaki's quote can be used in a possible way in Belize. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the upcoming retirement for some of you. And many of you have been emailing me saying you are looking forward to retirement, even though that could be some years away. But you're also concerned because you want to make good decisions now so you have a good retirement when the time comes. So here are some interesting things regarding many of you who have some anxieties or some concerns about your future retirement. There was a recent article in the latest copy of Forbes magazine that talked about the consequences of not planning for your retirement or not taking it seriously enough. And here's some interesting things that the article highlighted. It said that the consequences of not setting yourself up enough for retirement, and that is having enough funds to last your retirement until death, it can be disastrous in many ways. And if not disastrous, it's just sort of sad. If, for example, you may have a next door neighbor or know of someone maybe in your family who is well past the retirement age, but now they still have to work to make ends meet, maybe working a part-time job, maybe in a full-time job. Or you might know of an older person who should be retired, living the quote-unquote good life, but now have to move back in with their adult children because they can't afford to pay the bills. So it's one of the consequences of not setting yourself up properly for retirement. Well, sometimes it's not disastrous like that, but it's disastrous in the way that it kills dreams in what should be a fun part of your life. Now you're through with work and you're able to travel and explore and do things. Now instead you're stuck at home pinching pennies, worried about medical bills, things like that. So the quote that I found very interesting was from Andrew Biggs. He was a Forbes contributing editor, and he said that 45% of working age households have no retirement savings at all, and that millions of families in the near future will run short. Well, why am I going through this brief synopsis of the retirement community as it sits in the US and Canada? Well, because it plays into the next part of the webinar, and that is investing in Belize for the financial return to set yourself up for retirement. So sort of securing your finances, but also in a way, coming up with a plan B, securing your future retirement spot in Belize, whether that be part-time or full-time, and some of the benefits that can be derived from doing that. So let's get right into it. First of all, self-directed IRAs. We know that a good number of you on the webinar today have IRAs because we sent out a survey before, and some of you might be looking to invest all or a portion of those funds that you already have in something more tangible that you can control, like Belize Real Estate. Now, here are just a few facts about self-directed IRAs. And again, if you don't have one, it's okay. Please pay attention because some of these things are going to apply to you as well. But first of all, self-directed IRAs or Roth IRAs were a government-provided incentive to encourage or to assist individuals or couples or families to build their own retirement fund that would be in addition to or a supplement to Social Security. Now, most people take a hands-off approach to the funds that they put in this account. So they donate $5,500 a year, or whatever the amount is, it accumulates, and then they just sort of pass that off to a third party, hoping that that third party would do a good job and invest it for them. They would earn a decent return so that at age 59 and a half, well, they have some accumulated funds to use in their retirement. Now, it's interesting that most people do not really know what they're invested in, or at least not in any meaningful detail. What they may not realize is the IRS allows for a variety of different types of investment vehicles. Some have restrictions. As an example, this is taken right from the IRS.gov website, talking about IRAs and different types of alternative investments that you can invest in. For example, artwork, rugs, antiques, precious metals, gems, stamps, coins, alcoholic beverages, that's an interesting one, and certain other tangible personal property. So you can invest in all of these things with funds you already have in your IRA. But sometimes what your custodians won't tell you is that you can also invest in real estate in the United States, but also abroad, offshore. Now, IRA trustees aren't required by law to invest your funds in real estate. However, notice this slide. It says, but the IRA does not prohibit the investing in real estate as an option. So now this is where it gets very, very interesting because there are billions and billions of dollars being held right now in IRAs that are currently in mutual funds or the stock market. And people are finding out about this and they're moving their money into something more tangible like rental properties in the States, vacant land deals, and certainly we've seen a high number of clients purchase real estate in Belize. In fact, 37.3% of all of my clients who have bought property from me in the past 6 years have done so using their IRA. So very, very high percentage. Now, what qualifies as an investment using an IRA? Well, it can hold single-family rental homes, apartment buildings, retail space, commercial space, vacant land. I'm very bullish on vacant land for IRA deals in Belize, and I'll explain why later. But also you can invest in real estate syndications. You can buy, sell, rent, sell with financing. All these things are allowable and actually encouraged if you have money in your current IRA. Now, what is not allowable? Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky for you guys looking to use a property in Belize. First of all, you cannot buy your own personal family home with IRA funds, or you cannot get involved in transactions between family members. So, for example, your son or your nephew, your uncle, or your wife owns a property. You can't buy that property with your IRA. It's not allowed. It's a violation. Also, you cannot buy a vacation property for your personal use. That is until you turn 59 and a half. So, for example, some of you online right now are in your 40s, you have a healthy IRA, you cannot buy a condo in Belize and use that condo. It has to strictly be for investment because the reason the government wants you to use this money is to build up a war treasury chest so that in your retirement you have some assets. You have something to use to fund your retirement. So these are things that are not allowable. Now, here are some things that you can do with your IRA in the United States or in Belize. For example, you can get involved in a real estate syndication. Now, what is that? Well, basically, it's when a person leading a syndication looks for investors to come and be a part of his investment. So it could be, for example, a beachfront home in Belize or a hotel project or even a condo where he is gathering a group of investors, usually accredited. And to be an accredited investor, you have to have an income of $250,000 per year and $1 million net assets, not including your own home. The minimal investment can range. It can be as low as 25, 50,000, but usually in Belize, we find a minimal investments of 100,000 US. The returns vary. They could be anywhere from 3% to 10 to 14%, depending on the deal. And what it is, it's a group of investors pooling their money together to get one larger asset that can make a larger return than if they invested just $50,000 or $100,000 on their own. And I'm going to show you a way that you can do that a little bit later on in our options. Another thing you can do is you can buy a rental property in Belize. For example, look at a 1 or 2 bedroom condo. Again, I'm going to show you an option of that later on. These are minimal investments of anywhere between 175,000 to 450,000 US dollars for anything decent on the island that would return a good sizable net income. The returns again vary depending on the project and the management company. Some rent very well. Some do returns of 5 to 8%, while others barely manage 1 or 2. Again, it depends on the specific property. We'll go through some reasons why that is a little bit later. We talk about one specific opportunity. And the one thing you need to keep in mind regarding rental properties, because here's the thing, whatever you purchase with your IRA, all the necessary funds or financial obligations for that asset also need to come from the IRA. It can't come from you personally. Now, I had a client get in trouble with this one time. For example, they bought a single family villa that was about $425,000. They paid cash for the villa, but it took all the money they had from their IRA to do that. Well, sure enough, 1 or 2 years down the line, HOA fees got kind of behind and they needed some capital improvements at $4,000 or $5,000. The problem is they didn't have any money left in the IRA to pay those capital expenditures. So they got themselves in a little bit of a bind. They thought they could just contribute their own money to it, but again, that would be a violation. So if you're looking at buying an improved property, talk to me first to make sure you have the funds to cover yourselves so that the rental income not only pays you all your fees per year, but provides you a profit and it can cover those unusual expenditures that can come up from time to time. So let's go on to the next slide because this is another example of what you can buy with your IRA, and that is vacant land. And this is what I highly recommend. And again, well over 37% of my clients do this. They buy land in the path of progress or in up-and-coming areas. There is usually a minimal investment of $35,000 for an off-beach property, all the way up to $300,000 or $400,000 for a very sizable beachfront property. But these make excellent options for IRA investors, both if they want to buy and flip for the capital gains or if they want to buy and flip with seller financing. And here is why this is so interesting and what has a lot of my clients intrigued. And again, this applies to you whether you're investing retirement money or you're investing private money, your own savings, things like this. So here's how it works. An IRA will find a really good deal on a beachfront or off-beach property. We will put the property under contract, we will close on it, and the IRA will hold the property. Then, at some point in the future, it could be immediately, but I don't recommend that. I recommend holding a property for maximum appreciation and the length of time, depending on what's going on in the area. It could be 12 months, 24 months, 36, really depends. But offer that property for sale on the open market with seller financing. Typical terms are what we call a 10-10-10, 10% down, 10% interest for a 10-year AM. Now, what's interesting is in Belize, when you are the holder of a property and you're selling that property with owner financing, you maintain ownership of the title until the property is paid in full. So, for example, in this example, the IRA would legally keep holding the title until the property is paid in full. But now remember, you're making a profit on the sale, either because you were able to sell it for more than you paid for it, which is the ultimate goal. That's why we buy in the path of progress. And in addition to that, you're charging your buyer 10% interest, which is the standard interest rate on the island of Belize for seller offered financing properties. It seems high by U.S. and Canadian standards, where we can get much lower interest rates at banks and credit unions. But on the island of Ambergris Caye, if you go to the banks, it's 10%, 10 to 12% interest, very short AMs. So seller financing typically is 10%. And the buyers, I tell you what, the buyers do not care because they are able to get a very good deal on the island without having to resort to local bank financing, which is always a disaster. In 10 years of dealing in real estate there, I've had 2 deals be bank financing. And it's just a disaster. So anyways, it's a win-win is what I'm trying to say. A win for the seller. He gets his profit. He makes a good return. Also a win for the buyer because they get a beautiful property, which they've been searching for and now finally are able to own. And here's the bonus. There's no capital gains taxes in Belize. So it's an excellent deal for my investors. Well, here is an example of how you could do that using real world numbers. Just an example. You find a property for $50,000. It's in a nice up and coming area. So you buy it, you close on it, you sell it for $60,000. So you make $10,000 on the flip. But more importantly, because you're offering financing, you get 10% down from the buyer. Now you have a $54,000 loan that he owes you the money on, and now you're making 10% on that. And so you're not only making the $10,000 in the flip, but now you're also making the ongoing 10%. And I would think it's safe to say that you're not making 10% in your IRA right now. You're probably making much less. Even though the stock market is going crazy, and we all know that it's a bubble, we all know what's going to happen very soon, but nobody seems to want to talk about it. But this is not the case with Belize Real Estate. So give this some thought. So here's what you need to do. If you have an IRA or if you want to open one, you simply take your IRA funds, you locate the property, you fill out the DOI form, the Directive of Investment form, give it to your custodian. Your custodian will process the investment. It takes about 30 days to do that. And then they will wire the funds to our local closing company in Belize, and your Belizean property becomes owned by your IRA. It's a very, very simple process. We do it all the time. Alberto Villanueva, our local closing agent at Belize Caye Investments, he's very familiar with this process, processes dozens of these for us per year, and can walk you through any questions you have once you find your property and get it under contract. So one of my favorite quotes from Dennis O'Leary, one of my favorite sharks on the show Shark Tank is, "But how can I make money?" That's the bottom line here. Well, what you need to do is look for some insider trading information. And no, we're not talking about doing anything illegal. If you're involved in insider trading in the stock market, that usually ends up with a prison sentence. But if you're involved in insider trading in real estate, well, that's where you find the best opportunities. And what do we mean by insider trading? Well, it's nothing hidden or underhanded or illegal, but what we're doing is we're simply finding out what is making a certain market tick, what is driving a certain market, what's going to cause certain parts of the island or Belize to increase in market in value, perhaps even exponentially more so than other areas. So for example, in the stock market, if you have an inside tip about a certain company, announcement that's going to be made in the near future or something's going on, then you can sort of illegally buy or sell whatever you want to do with that information. That's illegal, but it doesn't apply the same way to real estate. So what we want to do is look at very specific market drivers in Belize that give an indication of where you should buy for the highest returns. So how can we do this? Well, let's talk about how to capitalize on the coming wave. And to do so, we're going to talk about Amazon. Now, back in September of 2017, Amazon announced that they are going to seek one particular city in the United States to open up a new headquarters. Headquarters 2.0 is what they're calling it. It's not a sub-headquarters. It's actually going to be a fully fledged headquarters equal to the size that Amazon has right now. Now, what is that going to mean for whatever city they end up choosing, whatever city wins the bid, so to speak, where they're going to invest $5 billion in construction. They're going to create as many as 50,000 high-paying jobs, and it's also going to create many additional jobs in addition to the ones that the employees that work directly for Amazon, and it's going to generate tens of billions of dollars into the local economy and in the community where they choose to land. Now, here are some possible cities. We have Denver, Colorado, Austin, Texas, Tampa, Atlanta, New York, Boston, Baltimore. So major hubs already thriving economies in their own right, many moving components, different key aspects that already make them good opportunities for the real estate market for those who are investing in the United States. But think about it. What would happen to the local real estate market if Seattle picked and now is moving in to one of these key areas? Well, it probably would be a game changer in many different sectors. When you look at what Amazon does now at their headquarters, how many billions of dollars in revenue they create, the number of jobs that they have, the number of other investments that they give to a certain area, it really provides a boom to the local economy. It builds confidence in the area because if Amazon's there and it's good enough for them, well, it's good enough for me too. And it creates a high demand for hotels, for rental properties, even for businesses, coffees, restaurants, retail shops, because if they succeed, everyone succeeds. So anytime this much economic activity is pointed at a single market, there is absolutely going to be a lot of opportunity. So now, how can we apply this type of scenario to Ambergris Caye? Well, no, Amazon is not looking at Ambergris Caye at all. However, for the size of the market, for an island that is 25 miles long by 4 miles wide and has a maximum of 25,000 inhabitants at any given time, including tourists, there are things as big as Amazon that are happening in and around Ambergris Caye. So before we get to them, let me just take a few of your questions. I polled you earlier today, and you had some key questions for my IRA clients, and I just want to run through several of these for you just to get these out of the way, and then we can move on. First of all, can my self-directed IRA purchase real estate in Belize? Yes, absolutely. Again, over 37% of my clients do. If you want more specific information, go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'll tell you how you can do that. Next question. I plan on buying a property in Belize that would generate rental income. What happens to the rental income, and what happens if I sell the property? All right, so this is an easy question. So your IRA owns the condo or home that is in a rental pool and being rented either to overnight guests, local tourists, those that are there in Belize on vacation, or it's maybe rented long-term, someone who's there for 6 or 12 months at a time. All that rental income gets put back into the IRA. And so it keeps on, accumulating money, and then you can eventually do something else with it. But that all goes back into your IRA, because remember, what you're doing is you're building your future funds for retirement. If you sell that property, all the money then goes back into the IRA, and again, you can go and do something else with it. Buy a different property, buy land, go and do something else entirely, whatever you want to do. So here's another question. What if I don't have sufficient funds in my IRA to pay cash for the property? That's an excellent question. Many of you are sitting on maybe $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, and you're wondering just what you can do since you don't have a large amount to invest. Well, here are a couple of options. Number one is you could finance a property using your IRA. So, for example, if you have $10,000 in your IRA currently, you can put that money down, most likely on a off-beach or near-beach lot. And then with your annual contributions, you can make annual payments. So for example, you can contribute, I think it's $5,500 per year. So you would want to make sure that whatever financing you work out with the seller, that your $5,500 covers that, your property taxes, which are low, things like that. But that's one way that many of my IRA holders have chosen to invest. But also, some don't realize this, you can also combine IRAs for a single purchase. For example, I have a few couples where the husband and wives had their own IRAs, each with different amounts, and they were able to purchase beachfront property or condos with each of their IRAs owning a certain percentage. They could be 50-50, 65-35, 75-25. The ratio doesn't matter. You choose the ratio, and then your IRAs own that property jointly, but each owning a percentage. So that's also an excellent way to invest. Now, can I use my self-directed IRA to renovate a property and sell at a higher price? Yes, absolutely. Here are a couple of quick examples. So, example, you can buy a dilapidated house, maybe something that's needs a lot of work. You can buy that property with your IRA, fix it up, flip it. But remember, all the funds that you are putting into the renovation need to come from the IRA. Or you could do something like this: buy a property in an up-and-coming area like Secret Beach, Ambergris Caye, Habanero Subdivision, some of these areas where the property itself could be improved, the vacant land. So it might be that the land needs a little bit of fill or topping off or clearing, or maybe there's a road close by, but there's no roads leading to that property yet. You can buy the property with your IRA and then pay for some improvements to be done, and then sell it at a higher price. Again, hopefully with seller financing, where I like to see the biggest returns come from. So here's another question: can I roll over funds I already have in my 401k? And if so, why may not my broker recommend it? Well, rolling over funds can be done, but usually it involves you leaving the company that you currently work for. This happens quite often, actually. So, for example, if you're working for a company and you have 100 or 200,000 in your 401k and you leave that company for somewhere else, most likely you can roll those funds over into a self-directed IRA. Now, sometimes I run into this where my clients have contacted their broker and they said, nah, you don't want to do that. Keep your money in your 401k, and they give them all this rigmarole and stuff. Well, here's the deal on that. Your broker is only looking out for himself if he's telling you this, not for your best interest. And here's why. The 401k broker, and I use the term air quotes there for broker, or custodian, he is paid for what is called assets under management. That's typically a 1 to 1.5% annual fee. And get this, it's not tied to the performance of the fund. So your 401k can make money, it can lose money, it doesn't matter. He gets paid his annual fee for simply managing the assets, even if he loses money. So that's why he doesn't want to see your funds transferred to a self-directed IRA custodian. So the key difference is an SD IRA custodian charges only a small flat rate and does not get paid when you invest your funds in your own investment. So everyone should switch to a self-directed IRA, even if they aren't buying real estate, because it allows you then to take control of your own financial investments. And then finally, will my current IRA custodian work with the purchase of Belize Real Estate? If not, what are my options? What we have found is that some IRA custodians are more than willing, but some are not, simply because they are not familiar with it. They don't know what the paperwork looks like. They don't want to tell you or get involved in something they may not be 100% confident in or know the rules in. So what I would recommend is, if your IRA custodian doesn't really doesn't really recommend it or is uncomfortable with it, then simply contact Equity Trust, which is a IRA custodian based out of Westlake, Ohio. They process hundreds and hundreds of IRA real estate purchases per year. We do a lot of business with them, probably 75% of all of our business is done with them. Or you can contact New View Trust Company out of Florida. They also do a good number of IRA purchases, specifically in the country of Belize. Both of these are very familiar with Belizean law, the holding of title, on how your IRA can legally own property there. So very easy to do. And I hope you benefited from this short overview of how you can invest your IRA funds. Now, one more thing before we move on. When you take title to a property in Belize using your IRA, we always do so through a third-party vehicle like an LLC or an IBC. And the reason for this is the Belizean government has to be able to register the title holder. So for example, if I take a title in my personal name, Dennis Caye, I can put my name on the title. I can take that title through an IBC or an LLC. I have a Belize Chapter 250 corporation. I take titles like that sometimes. But the government of Belize doesn't know how to register an IRA account. So what they do is they ask that the IRA account holds title in some type of vehicle, LLC, IBC. And what we recommend is a simple international business company. The benefits to doing so are very, very multiple. It can protect you from lawsuits, give you a lot of privacy. They're very simple to form. It helps you to minimize your taxation, actually, and I don't have time to get into that on this webinar, but in other webinars I do, and it offers you a great amount of asset protection. And also, if you have kids or grandkids, where you can foresee a time where this property in Belize will eventually be passed on to them, then you can save a great deal of money in stamp tax by owning title or holding title in an IBC. So again, don't want to get into the weeds too much on that, but if you're interested to learn more, email me and I will send you some information. So now what I want to do is just do a quick market overview. I covered some of these points in detail in last week's live event, but there are many new attendees attending live today. So I want to go through these briefly, but in enough detail so you really understand what's going on the island of Ambergris Caye, and also how it affects current property owners and for anyone looking to get in the game in the very near future. So number one, is I want to take a brief look at the 2017 tourism stats. And these were recently released by the Belize Tourism Board, at least for the first 9 months. And what we saw is that there was a huge increase in the number of tourists visiting Belize over the year of 2016, an equally huge increase over the year 2015, 14, 13, going back all the way to 2012. So year after year, Belize is showing a massive increase in the number of overnight guests. And this is one key part of what we need to understand, is that recently, this is over the past 9 to 12 months, over 2,000 passenger seats per week have been added by the various airlines servicing Belize from the United States and Canada. Now, why is that so significant? Well, as an example, you can have a large hotel add 200 to 500 to 1,000 rooms. And what they are hoping is that with their name recognition and with their marketing, they can fill those 200, 500, 1,000 rooms. The airlines work differently. They add seats based on actual demand, actual request. So for them to add these 2,000 passenger seats per week, it means that there is already a demand that is not being met, and that is why they add the additional flights. Of course, Ambergris Caye continues to be the leading tourism destination in the country, and there's good reasons for that. Again, we don't have enough time to get into it now, but safe to say, all those who are looking to invest in Belize are looking very, very closely at what Ambergris Caye offers in return. So now, why is this important to you? Well, it's a numbers game. More tourists equals more exposure to the island. More exposure means more interested buyers. A certain percentage of all visitors to Belize will develop an interest sufficient enough to buy and invest. This means less inventory. We're going to talk about inventory just in a little bit as we look at beachfront opportunities on the east and west side. And what that ultimately means is real estate rises in value, which it has. So you have capital appreciation, you have higher occupancy rates, higher overnight rates, which we'll talk about, and the opening up of new areas. So very, very key to the market is understanding the significance of these tourism stats that are consistently going up month after month after month. Now, number two, what is happening with Google search when it comes to Belize real estate? For example, that keyword, Belize real estate, how many times per month are people typing that into their search engines? From what locations? What major cities in the United States and Canada? And how many are doing that compared to how many overnight visitors are coming to Belize? This is a very, very fascinating study. As an example, right now, and this data was just pulled last week, almost 15,000 people a month are typing in Belize Real Estate into their search engines. 700 are typing in Belize Real Estate for sale, homes for sale in Belize, houses for sale in Belize, Ambergris Caye Real Estate. Now, how does this compare to how many people are actually coming? Well, in the past 9 months, there was a total of about 341,000 visitors to the country of Belize. And on average, if you add it up, over 22,000 were typing in Belize real estate. They're looking at real estate opportunities. And for what reason? Well, obviously, they want to see what's happening. Most of the time, when you take a vacation to a country, you don't look at real estate opportunities there. For instance, if I go to Miami Beach or if I go to Paris, France, or somewhere like this, I don't necessarily type in Miami Beach real estate when I'm going on vacation. These people are typing it in. They are spending a good amount of time on various websites. And again, we know this from looking at the data, but here's the facts. 15.3% of all overnight visitors to the country are looking at real estate opportunities. And actually, we believe the number is much higher than that when you take into consideration social media, which is not reflected in that 15.3%. So again, why is this important to you? To you as an investor, as a current property owner, or as a future property owner? Well, again, it relates to having more tourists, more interested people, more purchases, more exposure, again, higher appreciation, less inventory, and the opening up of new areas, especially on the island of Ambergris Caye. Now, the next thing we want to take a look at is number 4, Caye Chapel. Caye Chapel is the island that is a golf course in Belize. It is the only real golf course. When I say real golf course in the country, it sits on its own private island. And just a few years ago, the island was purchased by what is named the Caye Chapel Development Group. They have just submitted their EIA to the governor of Belize, and they plan on a $250 million 5-star resort to be built over the next 4 years. Here is an aerial view of the island. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now, this is about a 7-minute flight south of Ambergris Caye. So you have Ambergris Caye, then the island of Caye Caulker, and then we have Caye Chapel. Now, why is this so significant? Well, because pro golfers like Greg Norman are going to trademark the new Caye Chapel golf course. Again, with a name like Greg Norman, he's going to bring a lot of eyeballs to this part of Belize, a lot of attention. So we're very excited to see, once this EIA gets approved, the project is underway, what additional attention it gives to this very specific part of the country of Belize. Number 5, we have Blackdore Caye. Blackdore Caye is owned by Leonardo DiCaprio and Jeff Graham, the owner of Cayo Rosario. Their project is also now being set to be kicked off. Their EIA has also been submitted to the Lands Department as in the process of approval. This is an aerial view of Blackdore Caye. I won't get into specifics too much because, again, I've talked about it extensively in another webinar. But I want you to think just quickly and briefly what impact DiCaprio is going to have on Belize. For example, what impact is he going to have on the economy of such a very small country of only 350,000 people? Huge. How is it going to affect tourism? Of course, he's going to draw a lot of people to his own island, but how much of that will overflow to Ambergris Caye? Which areas in particular are going to see a boom? What does it mean for real estate investors? And when would now be a good time to take advantage of a few different opportunities? So here's a Google Earth shot of where Blackdore Caye is located. You see Ambergris Caye on your right. The lines in red represent the east-west connection road that connect the east to west sides of Ambergris Caye. You see the subdivisions of Ambergris Caye, or Grand Belizean Estates, Palmyra Woods, Ambergris Bay. You see Secret Beach highlighted there. And then you see Blackdore Caye there, highlighted with the yellow oval. And then you see an island called Cayo Rosario. Cayo Rosario is also in process of getting their EIA approved by the government of Belize. And what they plan on doing is a beautiful boutique hotel, which includes overwater bungalows. And this is also going to drive a lot of traffic over to the west side of Ambergris Caye and really affect that Secret Beach, Ambergris Bay area, and going to bring a lot of attention to Ambergris Bay itself. Finally, number 7, the grand opening, which happened 2 weeks ago, of the Hilton Curio collection at Mahogany Bay Village. This is a beautiful property that is now open, bringing a lot of attention, a lot of new restaurants, commercial opportunities, investment opportunities. With the Hilton Curio name, the branding is fantastic for this resort, and they did a fantastic job building it. Each of these places are located on canals that lead off to the west side of Ambergris Bay. Bookings so far have been absolutely fantastic. It's really a beautiful part of the island that they have developed. This is bringing a lot of attention. And then finally, the Wydham Grand Belize at Venezia del Caribe. It was recently announced that they're going to brand Venezia del Caribe, which is Sandy Point Resort's newest property, as a Wydham Grand property. Again, huge brand name. In fact, one representative from Wydham was actually on island last week, met with the local newspapers and gave an interview, and they're very, very excited about getting this project opened in 2018, and they have some very exciting projections for their investors and current property owners. This is an aerial view showing the progress of construction. So you see the beachfront buildings there have been well underway. You also have several buildings in back, which I don't have pictures shown on this slide, that are being built. It's located directly next to Cocoa Beach and Belizean shores, and there's a artist representation there showing what it looked like when it's finished. Beautiful Venetian theme, a lot of canals, a lot of water. Sandy Point Resorts is known for their incredible pools, incredible finishes, and this is going to be an excellent, excellent property. So now, again, going back to our example of Amazon. When Amazon chooses a city to move into, they're going to have a massive impact. Again, one company, massive impact, and that's going to overflow and affect a lot of things, including the real estate market. So what is happening in a very small part of Belize? Look at what's surrounding and happening on and very close to Ambergris Caye. The announcement of the new international airport, which the government of Belize would like to get constructed or started in the construction phase in 2018. Blackdore Caye, off to the west coast. Cayo Rosario, the Wydham Grand Belize, the Hilton Curio, Mahogany Bay Village property grand opening, and the construction and opening of Caye Chapel. All very, very large investments in a very small area. These things total up to almost $1 billion of investment, again, on an island and a market that currently only has 25,000 people living on it. So a lot of exciting things. Now, again, look at this slide. Anytime this much economic activity is pointed at a single market, there's certainly going to be a lot of opportunity. So what I want to do now is take a drink of water because my throat's getting dry, and then I want to take you through some of the real estate options, specifically beachfront options that many of you have been asking about, and see what is happening to their prices, the appreciation, and where I feel some of the best deals are, whether or not they are my listings, my competitor listings, fellow agents, and so forth. So let me just grab a drink of water and I'll be right back. All right, so what we want to do is whenever we're looking at properties and real estate opportunities is we always want the best deals. People come to me all the time and they say, you know, Dennis, when a good deal comes up on X, let me know. Well, of course. So what constitutes a good deal? Well, one good deal to one person might be another person's out of their budget. So what I tell people is what you want to do when you're looking for a good deal is look for a bargain property or a property that is being sold under market value in an expensive neighborhood or a neighborhood that will become expensive because something is happening to drive up prices or in that area. So a cheap property, that doesn't make it good. You can find a lot of cheap property in Belize, and 5 to 10 years from now, it's still going to be cheap because nothing is happening or nothing will happen in some of these areas to cause an increase in the appreciation or in the amount of people visiting that certain area because of various reasons. Also, expensive is not always a good investment. You don't want to buy in an area that's already topped out at the top end of the market and being sold at or above market value, unless you're just doing it strictly for the personal enjoyment and lifestyle. Then of course money doesn't matter because you're not doing it for the financial return, you're doing it for the lifestyle. And believe me, people overpay for lifestyle investments all the time. And I guess that's part of the fun of becoming successful and wealthy at times, is you can overpay and it doesn't mean much. But for most of us, we are looking for that bargain deal. So what I want to do now is I just did this yesterday. I highlighted some vacant land deals on the east side of Ambergris Caye, and I want to break it down to you and sort of show you the numbers as they are calculated by the number of beach foot compared to the purchase price. So for example, on the island, vacant beachfront property is usually sold by giving a value to the number of beachfront. So for example, this property here has 100 feet of beachfront. It's on the market for $990,000 US dollars. It's about 3 miles north of San Pedro town. And this is not my listing. This is a listing from Sunrise, an excellent company to work with. And they are selling this property at what works out to be $9,900 US dollars per beach foot. It would make an excellent property for a single family home or a very small boutique hotel or condo project. All right, so this is the value, $9,900 per beach foot. Keep this in mind. Next property we find is a property that is a little bit wider. It's 127 feet wide. This one is going for just about $1 million. They got it priced at $999. And the cost on this is $7,874 per beach foot. This is 0.6 miles north of the bridge on the north side of Ambergris Caye. And so this is a nice property if you want to be in a very high-end exclusive area where, again, all your neighbors are already decided for you. So this is nice if you want a certain amount of protection and knowing what's going in around you. This is what's called buying in a fully developed area. And to do that, you're paying the price. You're paying $1 million to know what the area looks like. And there's a lot of people that will pay this to know and to build their dream home in this very nice part of the island. Again, not my listing, a listing through Seaside, but if interested, let me know and I can be your broker representative on this. Here's another property. This one is about 6.5 miles north of San Pedro. This is, again, a 100-foot property. It's very deep, 600 feet deep. This is priced at $500,000. So if you look at the per beach foot price, it's $5,000. Now this would make a nice property, again, for a single family home or a very small hotel or beachfront condo project. Again, you see the property values here, $500,000 to $1 million, and basically for the same size property, it's just a little bit further from town. And again, you might be in an area where you're not quite sure who your neighbors are going to be. So the price reflects that. Here is a property even further north on the east side facing the reef. This is about 14 miles north of town. It's a listing by Seaside. This is 145 feet of beachfront by 400 feet deep. This is $320,000. And you see how the beachfront price drops. So we'd had some at $7,000, $5,000, almost $10,000, and now we're down to about $2,200. Now, why would that be the case? Well, it's far from town. It's 14 miles north of town, and right now there is there is power in this general area, so you have that. You have internet, but for right now, it takes a while to get up there. The road's not finished paving, but it's an excellent price for a property of this size. Again, $320,000. You get your own lot for your own beachfront estate. So excellent. So if you want any of these properties, I think they're fantastic deals. Now, where do I feel the market is going and where you can make a better investment? Because these properties that I just showed you, I think are at or slightly above fair market value. So you're not going to really buy these for the financial return. You would buy those more from a personal lifestyle return as a pure use and enjoyment. But For the financial return, I recommend you looking at the west side of Ambergris Caye, the side that faces Ambergris Bay. So here is a Caribbean Coves beachfront lot. This is about 2.5 miles from San Pedro town. Again, on the west side, there are no roads to this area of the island yet, and there probably will not be for some time because it's pretty difficult to get to by road. There aren't any for one, but to put in the road is going to be a bit of a challenge. So it's boat access only. But again, it's a beautiful lot. It's about 80 feet of beachfront, and it's for sale for $199,000, 1.29 acres. And again, you see the price, $2,487 per beachfront. Good price. Excellent job. And it gets you your own private beachfront building lot for under $200,000. So I think this is a prime opportunity for the right buyer. Again, maybe not the highest and best use for the financial return, but certainly a very good price. Here's another example. Again, not my listing. This one is listed by Sunrise. It is a beachfront property called Laguna Estates. It faces Cayo Espanto. This is 120 feet of beachfront. That's listed at $225. A little bit shorter on the depth, about 100 feet, but again, big enough to build your own private beachfront home in a nice area of the island overlooking crystal clear waters, and you have some really fantastic neighbors because I know some of the projects and single-family homes going in this part of the island, and they're absolutely going to be beautiful. So this is a beautiful high-end area that I can absolutely recommend. Now, what would I look for that is even a better investment than some of these options? Well, look for areas of the island where there are great potential for appreciation because, for example, maybe there are new roads going in, utilities can be installed in the near future, there's other infrastructure that are on the books that may go in within the next 6 months to a year or 2 years, or there are certain things happening in those areas that are causing a high number of eyeballs to take a closer look. And again, more exposure translates to higher prices and less inventory. So excuse me, I just want to give you a few examples now of properties that I think are fantastic personal use investments or investments strictly for the financial return. So what I'm going to show you now are several beachfront lots that are north of the area called Secret Beach. And here is the first property. It is a triangular shaped beachfront property with 191 feet of beachfront. So by far the absolute largest property in the entire Ambergris Bay subdivision. And it is triangular shaped. So you see one leg has 103 foot of depth. The under has 161 feet of depth, but it overlooks the most pristine waters on the bay. There's a sandy bottom. There's no seagrass. There's no trash that washes up. This is an absolutely beautiful lot. Now, what makes it a good deal? Well, it was recently surveyed, so you can see the size here. It's parcel number 8445. And do you see the other property? They're called parcel lot number 8450. That was surveyed at the same time. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But here is a Google Earth overlay of this parcel number 8445, the triangular shaped lot. You can see it is just past this inlet. That inlet that you see going down and to the right, that is an inlet that the government of Belize has set aside to become a future marina. So in there is a large open body of water that is perfect to have a future marina. And when you look at the island of Ambergris Caye on the west side, this is really the only place where you can have such a substantial marina because everything else is just open to the waves and to the wind. So as far as a protected area goes, this area is going to see some nice attention and future development. We don't know when. We don't know if it's going to happen 3, 5, 10, 15 years from now. Again, it's anybody's guess, but the potential is here for some nice things to happen. Now, again, what makes this triangular shaped lot a good deal? Well, I want to show you some actual sales. These are real plot numbers, real dollars, sold to real clients that have went under contract in the past 10 to 14 days. Lot number 8560 sold for $75,000 US, had 105 feet of waterfront. It translated to $714 per beach foot. Now again, remember in your mind what was happening in other parts of the island. We had 9,000, 7,000, 5,000, 2,500. We had very high prices per beach foot compared to this. This lot went for $75,000, waterfront lot, faces west, going to be facing toward that marina, fantastic property. Also, lot number 8466 sold for $95,000 US. This is a beautiful sandy beachfront lot facing west toward the sunsets, gorgeous lot. That has 65 feet of waterfront. The beachfront price on that is calculated at $1,461. And we had lot number 8460 sell. That sold for $88,000. That was actually one of them to an IRA client that I had. He's buying that with cash with his IRA. That also had 65 feet of waterfront. Beachfront price on that came in at $1,353. So you might think, well, why the difference of beachfront price? Well, not all lots are the same. You know, they can be a little bit different areas, a little bit different levels of naturalness, you might say, or in the raw native state. They might have some variability there. But you can see they're also very, very close in price. I mean, there's not much of a difference between $75,000 and $95,000, especially when you're talking beachfront property on an island like Ambergris Caye. So let's go back to this triangular shaped lot with 191 feet. Using these most recent comps, you could come up with possible listing prices of the following. Using the low number of $714 per beach foot, you could come up with a list price of $136. That really isn't representative of what it should be. It should be a bit higher than that. If you took the two higher numbers, you come up with a list price anywhere between $258,000 and $279,000. Again, I don't think that's realistic because it's a triangular shaped lot. It doesn't really have double the amount of usable space. But again, that 91 feet of beachfront is pretty valuable because it gives the potential home builder incredible options of how to lay out his house compared to having a 65-foot or 100-foot lot. For example, on 191 feet of beachfront, you can have 3 master suites, each 15 to 17 feet wide, and a 25 to 30 foot wide living room with floor to ceiling windows on one single floor, giving you expansive views. So imagine a house, instead of turned sideways, like for instance, putting your house lengthwise or widthwise, like a shotgun shell facing the water, you can actually turn that, and now you can have 75 feet of windows facing the sunsets with unobstructed views. So it really allows you some incredible design options. And for the right buyer, you guarantee he's going to build an incredible house on this piece of property. So I talked to the owner, and what we decided to do is list this property at $159,750 US. That works out to be a very reasonable $836 per beach foot. Again, I think one of the absolute best deals on the west side. Option number 2, I want to talk about being able to secure your future spot on the island with this lot. Now, this lot has the value or the additional benefit of being very, very close to having road access. In fact, I think you can drive by golf cart up to Secret Beach, turn north, and actually drive to this lot. It's lot number 490 in a beautiful part of the island. This is a lot. Here's the plot map. You can see it has 393 square meters. Excellent, excellent part of the island. Here is the view standing on the lot looking west. That is Cayo Rosario that you see out there. Again, that 10-acre island that is going to be developed as a very cool high-end boutique hotel with nightly rates starting at $1,000 a night. And off to the west even more, you can barely make it out, but that's Blackdore Caye out there, Leonardo DiCaprio's island. So again, very, very high-end area. This is a good deal on what will become an expensive neighborhood. Here's a look at the lot itself. You can see it's high and dry, has a nice quality of palm trees on it. And here is your next door neighbors. I sold this lot to Bruce and Karen Pfeiffer. They own lot number 491. And so a very, very nice couple for the U.S. So if you buy lot 490, you have excellent neighbors, which is always nice. And Some more details on this property. It has 50 feet of beachfront, which comes in higher at $3,700 US per beach foot. But again, the benefit of this is it already has, or it is very close to having road access, and there is good reason to believe that utilities are going to reach this part of the island sooner rather than later. And by utilities, we mean power, cable, and internet. So that's going to be a huge boom. And so the price on this of $185,000, this is the webinar price, reflects that this is a very up and coming area, and a lot of attention is already being given to it. If you don't know much about Secret Beach, just Google it. You have several restaurants, a beautiful little bed and breakfast there. You have great cafes. Some single family homes are also being built in this area. Here's an aerial view of Secret Beach. And the reason this area is so popular now is because tourists and locals alike can actually drive their golf carts to this area of the island. They can stay for the day, swim, snorkel, kayak, wakeboards, use the ski-doos, just have a great time and stay to see the sunsets, which you can't do on the east side of Ambergris Caye. So here's an option number 3, owning your own private island. So you have the opportunity, again, in this area to purchase not just your own beachfront property, but also your own private island. It's a 3.69 acre island, zoned residential and commercial development. So you can build your own single family home there, or you can get together with a group of family members, friends, business associates, or other investors, and you can choose to buy it for $1.6 million and put up several single family homes. And here's where the idea of investing with your IRA comes in, especially if you don't have enough in it to buy the island and develop your own home in its entirety. So here's a couple examples of what you can do with that. Let me just kind of quickly go through the slides here. Here's again a Google Earth shot of it, a shot of the island, the sandbar that leads off to the south. Again, look at those waters, absolutely crystal clear. But here is a development idea for the island. If you have 6 owners going in on this together, with each owner taking ownership of a half-acre parcel each, the land would cost them $266,000. Again, this is based on a $1.6 million purchase price. If they budgeted a pretty large amount, as far as I'm concerned, of $400,000 per home, and another $50,000 to $100,000 for some of the infrastructure, their own pier, a caretaker's home. So they would have between $700,000 and $800,000 US for their own private luxury home on a private island on Ambergris Bay, looking over Cayo Rosario, Blackdore Caye. Again, absolutely crystal clear waters. And after this webinar, if you want to know how this compares to other single-family beachfront homes on the island, you will find out by going to any number of websites that the minimal price you will pay for a completed beachfront home anywhere in the island starts at least $700,000, but more likely in the $1 to $1.2 to $1.5 million range. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity for the right group of buyers, whether it be a single buyer or a group of investors. And what I think they might be able to do is develop into something similar to Cayo Espanto. Cayo Espanto is one of the most luxurious resorts on Ambergris Caye, or excuse me, just off the coast. It also has, just by coincidence, 6 single-family style villas, each with their own pier, a little plunge pool. Armando Graniel, one of our local on-island builders, built this resort. He could do something similar for you on any beachfront property that you purchase or on this own private island. And to give you an example, if you did this for investment purposes and you wanted to see what your rate of returns could be like, take a look at the average nightly rate that Cayo Espanto rents out for. You see here, this is their actual February 2018 calendar. They're almost sold out. They're about 80% sold out. And their nightly rate goes between $1,800 and $2,300 US per night. That's per night. So you can see what the numbers would look like if you did something similar on that other private island. So just giving you guys something to think about. I know it's sometimes it's above your budget, above the pay grade, but again, something interesting for those of you who can pull the trigger on something. But something more reasonable for the rest of us, or maybe reasonable for the masses, is option 4. This is lot 14 in the Ambergris Woods subdivision. Now, why would this make a good deal? Well, it has fee simple title. There are no liens or encumbrances on the title. It's ready to be sold. You get full ownership on it. It's very, very close to Secret Beach, just 2 blocks away. It already has road access. And with this property, there are no HOA fees and no build restrictions. The purchase price on it is $45,000 US, and financing is available. The terms are subject to negotiation, but you can put as little as 10% down, take as much as 10 years to pay. And again, buying this property now will secure your future spot on the island. And here's the thing, remember, you may want a beachfront property, but all beaches in Belize are open to the public and are for the use and enjoyment of everyone. So if you can only afford, when I say only afford, it's still a big deal. You're purchasing a substantial property 2 blocks from the beach. That's where you spend the night. That's where you sleep. But during the day, you walk 2 minutes to the beach and you're on the beach all day and you're hanging out at the beach bar. So this is a nice way to secure your future at a very reasonable price. Again, here's an aerial view of Ambergris Caye with a red arrow pointing exactly to where the lot is on the small subdivision of Ambergris Woods. Here is the government-issued plot map showing all the parcel numbers. You see I have Ambergris Woods there highlighted in red with what it will be a beach access road. It is not installed yet. None of those roads are installed leading from the beach, those subdivisions to the beach, except for the main east-west connection road. But at some point, you will have direct access from Lot 14 right to the beaches of Ambergris Bay. So that's an excellent deal to tell you about. Now, one more. This just came in literally 30 minutes before I launched this live webinar. This came in from one of the agents who works for Sandy Point Real Estate, and he has a very special offering on a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo at the new Wydham Grand Venezia del Caribe. And again, here's where you can see what it's going to look like. It's currently under construction. Here's what it is. A 1-bedroom, 1-bath. The list price on it is $389,000 US. It is worth that for what it's going to return. But again, this is not a budget property. The Wydham Grand is going to be sold out. It's going to rent very high per night. They're going to have very high occupancy rates. It will be the most luxurious property, bar none, on Ambergris Caye. And the webinar special that I can offer it to you guys today is $260,000 US. And that does come with staged payments because the payments are tied to the construction. Now, it is already under construction. It is already well along. So there will be a hefty amount due up front, but then it is staged payments as they complete the build process and as they finalize the details. So again, list price of $389,000, webinar special today, $260,000 US. Here's some of the specifics. The nightly rate when it opens is projected to be $250 US per night. Again, excellent deal, very doable, especially with a high-end brand name like Wydham. The HOA fees will only be $225 US per month. The insurance for full coverage will be $1,100 per year. Their property taxes, $800 per year. And here's the thing. Cocoa Beach, which is Sandy Point Resort's flagship property right now, the one that is built and open, that does a very high occupancy rate and gets incredible reviews on TripAdvisor. They are averaging 5% net return to their owners on their condos. Wydham projects that with the Wydham name and the higher nightly rates, that they will get an 8 to 10% net return on these 1-bedroom units. So we don't know if they're there yet. It's just a projection, but 5% for sure. But it could actually be a little bit higher than that. So again, anytime you have this much economic activity pointed at a single market, there is certainly going to be a lot of opportunities for investment. And remember, money is not the goal, even though we talk a lot about money in this webinar, but the goal is getting you what that money can give you in return, whether it be lifestyle or a financial return so you can go ahead and do other things with your life. So if you're interested in any of these properties, go ahead and email me, DennisKii@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. But first of all, before concluding the webinar, I want to get to some of your questions that you were asking just before we went live. So again, please let me take a drink of water, clear my throat, and then we'll get into some of these questions, both live that you're asking now and also the ones you gave me just before we launched. So here's a question from Greg. Greg's actually on the webinar live, so thanks, Greg, for attending and staying on this long. So he wanted to know, what are the legalities of property ownership in Belize? Now, I'm assuming, Craig, you're asking what are the protections for foreign ownership, because in other countries like, for instance, Honduras, Mexico, Dominican Republic, they have an ownership structure that is very different from Belize. Belize is based on British common law. Because it was British Honduras, it's based on the same legal structure as we're used to in the US and Canada, and that is fee simple title. So your ownership in a property in Belize, whether it be a condo, home, or land, is full ownership. It's not a lease. It's not a long-term rental. You actually own the property 100% in full, and the government of Belize backs up or guarantees your rights as a property holder. So what that means is, if you have land certificate, which I only deal in properties that do, if you have land certificate, you are the guaranteed owner of that property. So excellent property protections, and the government of Belize is very, very strict on this, because they realize that the financial engine driving the country right now is foreign investments into Ambergris Caye. So they're very, very protective and very bullish on attracting foreign investment. So we can talk about that more later one-on-one if you want. The next question, we're going to a question by Susan. Do I personally cooperate with other agents and real estate companies in Belize? And are the various websites that are found online current? Well, yes, I do, Susan. I cooperate with all brokerages. I sell everything on the island, whether or not it's my personal listing. In fact, a lot of the properties that I presented tonight are not my listings. I have no skin in the game other than showing you the good deals. If you would like me to be your representing broker, I would be happy to represent you in any sale. You don't have to, but if you want, you can. I certainly would appreciate it. And here's the question or an answer regarding the websites. There are a lot of websites that are not updated on a regular basis. And many of them, it could be by accident or just neglect, but others do so on purpose. There are a good number, I can think of 5 to 6 right now, that advertise properties on Ambergris Caye that continue to show old and outdated listings simply as a bait and switch. So for example, in Ambergris Bay, they'll be advertising beachfront properties for $60,000. Well, you know what? We haven't seen those prices in years. On Ambergris Bay, but they purposely leave those on there so that you contact them, you're getting a conversation with them, and they say, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, that one sold, but I have this over here. You know what, I don't like that kind of nonsense. I don't deal with those brokers and agents. There are some that I will not deal with, and I'll be upfront in telling you which one those are if it comes down to you want to write a deal on one of the properties that they're offering. But otherwise, all of the reputable brokers and agents, Remax, Coel, Century 21, Sunrise, Ambergris Seaside, all those I deal with 100%. They're all excellent agents. I have no problem at all working with them. So here's a question from Mike. Mike has a question regarding health insurance. How does health insurance work in Belize? Mike, this is a fantastic question. And the good news is in Belize, as an expat, so if you are a full-time resident or a part-time resident who has full-time status, so for instance, you have a residency permit or you're there on a QRP program, you can get insurance provided through one of the local Belizean healthcare providers. And this is fantastic. My wife and I have full coverage on ourselves. We pay about $1,500 US per year. And unfortunately, we've had to use it. My wife had emergency surgery one year. Emergency gallbladder was removed, and they did an excellent job at paying for it. No problems at all. But also, what you can do is look at a third-party insurance company like Cigna. spelled Cigna. They offer worldwide health care. I also have a property because I travel so much and spend extended time in the U.S., in Belize and elsewhere in Europe, sometimes in Asia, that I have a universal policy on my wife and I, and for that we pay about $3,500 per year, but that covers us anywhere in the world, and that seems to be a lot cheaper than U.S. insurance right now or Obamacare, and we're very, very happy to do that. So very good. So hopefully they answer your question, Mike, and I can talk to you more one-on-one about that later. So here's a question from Kim. I have a champagne taste on a beer budget. What can I get? Well, absolutely, Kim. Like I said, don't let some of the beachfront prices or the condo prices scare you off. I tell you what, a good majority of my clients have that champagne taste and a beer budget. And what they are doing is they are choosing properties in places like Grand Belizean Estates, Ambergris Woods, Palmyra Woods. These properties tend to be a block or two or three, or maybe even a little bit more back from the beaches. But again, it's either like this. The way I explain it is, look, what do you want to do on Ambergris Caye? Do you want a place or not? Because you can look at the market and say, you know what, I can't afford beachfront, so I'm not going to do anything. And then you never make the memories, and you never come down with the family and friends, and you never have those beautiful moments watching the sunrise, fishing, diving, snorkeling, having fun, experiencing another culture. You never do it because you say, I can't afford beachfront. Or better, you simply buy a property that is 1, 2, 3 blocks from the beach, something you can afford. You build a small little home where you can afford it, and then you have a place to base yourself to make those memories from. So at least get a toehold, get your feet wet, do something on the island. And that starter property doesn't have to be the be all and end all. For example, you can buy a property now in Ambergris Woods that went for $45,000. If you're not going to be down in Belize for the next 5-10 years, perhaps you're working full time, you have a business, a family to raise, you're buying it for the future, keep that property for 5 or 10 years. If and when the time comes you want to sell it and upgrade to something else, well, do it then. But don't make the mistake of not getting anything now and simply refusing to buy or foregoing a purchase. I can tell you historically what prices have done in the past 6, 12, 24, 36 months, 5 years. They have consistently gone up in value without fail. And with everything going on that I told you about today, Wydham, Curio, Blackdore Caye, Cayo Rosario, the new international airport, property prices will continue to rise. So at least do something, Kim. And I guarantee you, if you have the desire, we can make something work. Here's another question that came in. If I buy sight unseen and then come down and don't like what I bought, then what? This is a good question because I'll be honest with you. 89% of all of my sales are to people that have not been to Belize before. They are buying sight unseen, or they have visited the island, but they have not seen the specific property that they are buying. And what enables me to do this is, number one, my knowledge of the island. I have personally set foot on every single property that I represent. I provide enough video, Google Earth shots, pictures of the property so my clients know exactly what they're buying. I provide them with enough market data to see that they are paying exactly what they should, and that I am getting them a good deal. So there are no surprises. I tell you, in 12 years of selling Belize real estate, I have not yet once had a client buy something sight unseen, come down to the island and say, you gypped me. This is not what I thought. I'm angry. I'm not happy. What do we do? Not one, not a single client. But if you are the first that happens to, if I sell you something and you don't like it, no problem. We simply put it back on the market and we will sell it. And I endeavor to get all of my clients such a good deal when they purchase that they shouldn't have any problem selling it and moving on to something else. So not a big deal. The properties that I sell are in good up-and-coming areas in the path of progress, so that will not be an issue for my clients to do that. So very good. Excellent. All right, I've seen some other questions come in. This question comes in from Chris. Do I have any 2-bedroom units at the Wydham Grand project? Actually, I do, Chris. I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit that is also on the market. Again, under market value. It is priced at $550,000 US. That comes turnkey, complete, with the furniture package. I don't have the breakdown of numbers and what that is projected to return at, but again, I think it's safe to say if you're buying for investment, a good 5, 6, 7%. And again, if you're buying for personal use, I can think of no better place to buy than the Wydham because it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And if you do your research at $550,000 for a very high-end 2-bedroom, 2-bath, that's not a bad price. That's what properties are selling for at places like Cocoa Beach. Places like Holchan Marine Reserve are selling for much higher than that. La Serene Resort down south, that's selling for much more than $550 for a 2-bedroom. So again, I think it's an excellent purchase for somebody. So here's another question that comes in. There is are there any additional beachfront properties on the west side of the island that I have not highlighted in this webinar? There are, but they are very, very few in between. As an example, I have went on every legitimate website that I know of that represents properties on Ambergris Caye, and on that entire west side, over 25 miles long, I counted a total of 14 properties for sale. That's it. 14 properties, all vacant beachfront property on the entire 25-mile coast. So there are a few in that Laguna Beach area. One you can get for around $120,000 with financing. Others, again, are going for a little bit higher, but that lot's an excellent purchase. And there are a few more. If you're looking for a larger development parcel, I have a client who has 4 lots for sale as a package deal, 2 beachfront, 2 second-row lots. It's a nice, large development parcel. I think it's going to sell for between $700,000 and $800,000. So again, it's very difficult to find a large parcel if you want to do a large hotel or resort. So that's a development piece. Again, if you're interested in that price range, email me and we can give you more specifics on that. Here is a question from Carolyn. If we invest in property, we would have to use taxable funds. Would this be practical? It depends, Carolyn, on what type of taxable funds you are referring to. Again, if you're pulling money out of something and you get hit with fees, for example, a 401k, you might want to see if you can roll the 401k over into an IRA first, so you avoid any sort of penalties or taxation on them. And then when you invest in Belize, using something like your personal funds or IRA, you get taxed various ways in the U.S. based on the type of investment you are making. So for example, in Belize, you have no property gains taxes. So if you buy a beachfront lot for $100, you sell it for $200, you owe Belize nothing. In the U.S., it depends on if that translates into personal income or a short-term or long-term capital gains taxes. So again, that's more of a question for your U.S. accountant or a tax preparer and how you can handle certain things on that. But for the most part, I am finding that there are certain tax advantages that you get owning property in Belize that you may not get owning property in the U.S. or Canada. All right, here's a question. Do I work with Sandy Point Real Estate? Absolutely, I do. In fact, I think they are a very reputable company, some fantastic agents at Sandy Point Real Estate, and I love the products that they represent. They represent a lot of the Sandy Point resort properties, so Extanha, Cocoa Beach, the Wydham Grand, also some very nice select beachfront and off-beach properties, so I do work with them. I appreciate the question. Here's a question from Kim. Are there any lots 2 or 3 rows back on the west side for under $50,000? The last 2 second row lot properties I sold for $60,000 US and $50,000 US respectively. Again, that is the most recent comps, $50,000 to $60,000. You might be able to find a third row lot for $50,000. We have to do some research on that. There are none on the market right now that I know of. I do have what would be a fourth row lot on the main east-west connection road, but that's selling for quite a bit higher. That's $75,000. Nothing in that $50,000 range. Boy, you know what? Let me think on that. And it depends on if you need seller financing or if you have the cash ready to go. If you have cash, I can probably find you a third or fourth row lot for 50,000 US. If you need financing, might take a little more work. And again, it depends on your timing. And here's why. Nothing is for sure until we write an offer. For example, you can say to me, Dennis, can you find me a lot? I can go to some buyers or some sellers and say, look, will you sell X for X? They might say yes now, but no next week because something could change. Either, again, something happens in the market to cause prices to rise, or maybe that seller just doesn't need the money anymore. Or maybe they do need the money. Maybe a kid's going to college. They need funds for the tuition or the books or whatever. They want to take a family vacation. So people sell and buy for different reasons. So the main thing I can tell you is let's get to the point where you can say, Dennis, here's what I have. I have this much money to put down. I have this much to cover my monthly payments. If you find me this, I can pull the trigger in the next 24 hours and we can move forward. Then I can go to work for you and look for a good deal. So let's start there and then see what we can find. All right. Well, guys, this is the longest webinar I've done in a while, and thank you all for attending. This has gone an hour and a half, and I appreciate all of it. I'm sorry I can't get to any more of your questions, but my voice is about done, and I'm sure you want to get on with your day too. So thank you so much for attending. I hope this was educational and instructive and fun for you. It certainly was for me. And if you have any questions on anything that we discussed today or anything that I could not get to, let me know and we will go from there. And here's my email again as a final slide, denniskii@gmail.com. Thanks so much, guys. Take care, and I hope to see you in Belize soon. Cheers.